What's good, guys? So we had a Steam launch for PlayStation here recently, Helldivers 2, and it's doing pretty well. It is the most successful Steam launch for a PlayStation game. Now, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. I might, I don't know. Right now, I'm about 110 hours deep into Palworld, so I haven't really had the time to. And I'll probably be talking about Palworld at some point here pretty soon. But I just wanted to, I've seen a lot of speculation that now that Sony's had this day and date launch, that this is going to upend how they look at how they release their PC ports, that we're going to be getting a lot more day and date on their exclusives. Let's put it this way. I don't agree with that assessment. I wish it were true, but I think if you look at Sony as a company, unfortunately, it just makes more sense that it's not true. That I think there's a few reasons why Helldivers 2 doesn't necessarily meet the criteria that would upend Sony's PC strategy. And so I wanted to go over a few reasons why I think Helldivers 2 was day and date, and also a few reasons why I think other games will not make it to day and date, even though and I realize a lot of people will shut the video off early, so let me make this very clear. I don't agree with the fact that I don't think these games are going to be day and date, these exclusives for Sony, but what I agree with doesn't jive with what I think they will do, and ultimately I'm here presenting my unsubstantiated claims about why I don't think they will release other games or other exclusives day and date. So first off, I think probably the easiest road to go with this is Helldivers 2 is a multiplayer shooter type game. And I think pretty much Sony's plans going forward with all multiplayer games are that they will not be console locked to the, well, they might be console locked, but they won't be platform locked to the PlayStation. I think that's probably the best bet because these games will live and die with their community. So you want to cast as wide of a net as possible. I think you're going to see that with Fair Games, I believe was sort of a heist shooter that they had coming out. I think you might see it with that game because that game is going to be sort of like a payday type game. So I think you're going to see that game needing a community succeed. So that might get a day and date launch as well. I think the other one, and I believe Sony's already kind of talked about this, is Bungie's extraction shooter Marathon. I'm pretty sure you won't see that locked solely to the PlayStation console because you do just want to cast a wide net and get these out so that you get as many people playing them so the community keeps the game alive longer. Pretty much no brainer. I think that kind of goes without saying, but I have to say it anyways. The other reason is I think that Helldivers 2 is a budget title, and I think the assessment was made that you're not going to get people buying PlayStations or PlayStation 5s to play Helldivers 2, and that's probably a fairly accurate assessment. So at the end of the day, I kind of think it's just, let's put it out there. Let's get as much money out of this title as we can. Yeah, if you want to come play it on PlayStation, you can come play it on PlayStation, but we're not going to keep it specifically there because we want this title to strike while the iron is hot, make as much money as possible before that dwindles off. And I think that's the no-brainer. But I wanted to talk about something else. There's been leaks lately, and these leaks, I can't substantiate them. Obviously, they're very, very speculative leaks. But they said a few things that I think are consistent with how Sony views PC. And so I don't think that we're going to see their big-budget single-player titles getting day and date PC launches anytime soon. There's a rumor going around. It's a Bloodborne rumor, so take that with a grain of salt. But unfortunately, you know, we've sat in the dark on Bloodborne for almost a decade now. So you're just going to have to live with the fact that unsubstantiated Bloodborne rumors are out there. There's a rumor now going around that there will be a Bloodborne remake that will launch with the PS6. I totally believe that. And the person who is also kind of putting this leak out there, or putting this rumor out there, also said that the PC work and PS5 work was done on Bloodborne and Sony opted to sit on it. And that's also something I could see. I could see Sony holding back Bloodborne, knowing that they could use it to sell me a PS6 because Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time. Much the same way they use Demon Souls to get me to buy a PS5. I am not a console war guy. I'm not a Microsoft guy. I'm not a Sony guy. I'm not a Nintendo guy. I have problems with all of them. And when it comes to Bloodborne, Sony and I we're not on good terms whenever Bloodborne is mentioned. And I could see them very easily saying, we're going to hold Bloodborne to force you into our ecosystem to buy a PSX. And as much as I like a lot of Sony games, unfortunately, that doesn't mean I like Sony. And I could believe that they would do that. That is the type of business move that is completely consistent with how Sony operates. And so when it comes to games like, you know, whenever we get the third God of War, or whenever we get Spider-Man 3 or the next Horizon game, whatever that is, don't expect those day-and-date PC launches. Just because Sony was able to make a few bucks on a budget multiplayer shooter, and I think it's a good thing. I think at least maybe it creates some chinks in the armor. Them maybe down the road they will not necessarily go day and date, but get that stuff out a little closer to launch so that it has time to get a little bit maybe of traction on PC. But I don't know, because at the end of the day, I think they're far more concerned with using their big budget single player titles to force us to buy a console, to force us into their ecosystem. And they only really put those games on Steam when they've basically done everything they can for them on PlayStation. It's not great. It's not something I agree with. It's consistent with how I see Sony as a company. I don't think that Helldivers 2 is going to change the paradigm shift at Sony and how they unfortunately approach what games they decide to port to PC and when they decide to port them. Anyways, that's going to do it for this little irritated rant or speculative rant, however you want to go for it. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, and we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Until then, get awesome.